Benson Okundi, who is a partner and also director with PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and we do have with us as well Reverend Dr Njenga, who is a corporate governance expert. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
For many Kenyans this morning, when they wake up and they see fire words, they wonder why. Why are we talking about fire words? What is fire words? And of course, we tried to break it down for viewers this morning that yes, this is a financial reporting that seeks to have a very wide, or a broad spectrum as far as financial reporting is concerned. So as I mentioned, it's not about just the bottom line, but there's so many nuances that we're adding when it comes to financial reporting. Maybe you can just give us, because I know NSE has been largely involved with this aspect as well, and you can just give us a snippet of what it really entails and why we need these fire words. Let's just begin with you, Geoffrey. Good morning.
Morning again, Debarl.
Morning.
So as you rightly put it, it's a highly prestigious award. We are now at its 16th year, and it's a platform for really recognizing the best reporting firms, most so from the aspects of what we call triple bottom line reporting, which basically looks at issues around this economic, social, and governance aspects of the company's operations. As you rightly put it, it's no longer just about the financial performance. It's more around also governance, how companies are run, how do they give back or respond to the community they serve, and really how do they address issues of standards in all aspects of their operations. Mm-hmm. So it's a very very highly recognized platform. The more important thing about these awards is just not the awards that we give the winners, but also the feedback we give every entry that makes an application in on areas of improvement, and how to ensure that you continuously provide information that is required by the investors and the public. Mm-hmm.
All right, and you could tell us also, Nebat, what are some of these nuances? Of course, he's talked about the triple bottom line reporting, but you can expand for us as well. You've carried out this particular awards for the last 16 good years. What has been maybe some of the highlights, the learning points, the high spots from this particular event or the awards?
Thank you, Rida. The FIRE Award, actually, as my colleague has said, is a prestigious award. And when we look at the FIRE Award, which is a financial reporting excellence, this year we have a theme to leverage improved financial reporting and corporate governance for economic growth and development within the East Africa. So what we are looking at is when you're doing the evaluation, we look at how have you complied with the financial reporting standards, the auditing standards. As you are aware that Kenya as a country, we adopted international standards in the year 2001, and we participate in the formation of these particular standards, and therefore we require our entities in the country and in the region to apply these standards. As you look at these standards, is that at layman's language, is that the number that has been reported is actually true. It is the actual number. The investor should be able to rely on and make good decisions. So we've expanded it a little bit, just not the standards, but also looking at governance. How do you look at governance? How do you comply with the standards, the IFRSs, the ESAs, the auditing, even the social aspect of it, and also the environmental. So as we do the evaluation, then we have those particular categories and we give marks for each of them. What happens if you win the FIRE Award? It's a prestigious award, and therefore we are looking at improvement in terms of reporting, so that the investors would actually be able to get value for the financial statements that they are reported.
All right, let's see from Benson, and I wonder, when we're talking about corporate governance, I wonder, and I know maybe this has been also really right up your alley because you're in the financial sector as well. Yeah. For the last 16 good years, were you focusing on the triple bottom line, or this is, you know, a new kid in the block as far as corporate governance is concerned? Because previously, as we said, we were looking at the bottom line only, the profits. But right now, it's a holistic view. And corporate governance is such a new, you know, lexicon when it comes to financial reporting as well. I think from the year 1998 or 2000, there is when actually it's really gaining attraction. after the Enron really went down. So people were really fudging accounts, and the issue now of corporate governance really came to the fore. Maybe you could give us a snippet of this. When we talk about corporate governance, how do we couple it with financial reporting?
Thank you for that. Corporate governance has gained currency in the recent past, and especially that follows the corporate downfalls that we've experienced in the past with the big companies in the US and also in other parts of the world. So in the last couple of years, let me say 10 years ago, it has really gained currency, because I think it's agreed that the main principal aim of corporate governance is to ensure that the wealth creation of stakeholders is actually taken good care of, and the assets are well managed. So as a result of that, it's gained a lot of currency, because if you look at what really caused the downfall of most of these corporations, is largely due to lack of good corporate governance practices, which means that the managers who are entrusted that responsibility did not have the interest of the stakeholders at heart. So as a result of that, a lot of disclosure requirements have been put in place to ensure that through corporate financial reporting, which is the main disclosure instrument, relevant information is actually put to bear so that stakeholders, not just investors, not just shareholders, can be able to see exactly what the corporation is doing, and more importantly, the value creation that the corporation gives. So we no longer just talk about investors or shareholders, talk about stakeholders, because these companies and corporations, they do operate within environments. They have customers, they have the regulatory bodies that look after them, they have employees, and they have environments in which they operate from. And from those environments, they extract value, and therefore they're expected to give back something to the environment and to protect the environment, and also to take care of their customers. So good corporate governance will ensure that a company does not just make profits for the benefit of its shareholders, but also takes into consideration the wider stakeholders' requirements.
Right. Let's hear from Reverend Njenga, because also this is your fund space as well. You can tell us more about, he's given us a snippet of how it has really gained traction. But from your experience, you being on the ground with this, what is your learning experience?
Well, thank you, Inea, for that. My take on corporate governance is about leadership. And leadership basically is influence. But let me say that these FIRE awards are spot on. And the reason for that, I believe it's about celebrating or setting benchmarks. And I think it is important that we have standards, and we celebrate standards, and we have benchmark as well. So looking for those who are doing well and those who are leading the way is spot on, and rewarding that, celebrating them is absolutely important. But coming back to my earlier point, the leadership really is about influence. And the question that comes to my mind is, okay, we've been doing this for the last 17 years, and it's not only the only way. I think we've been trying in many different ways to have the right kind of influence. And the question for me is, are we gaining traction? What is actually happening on the ground? And from where I sit, I think we are not doing very well, because even though we know the standards, are they influencing our behavior? If you look at the dailies today, plunder in the city, 150 state accountants moved in graft, police hand down chiefs or exam theft. We seem not to really be gaining traction. And I would want us to reach a point where we don't create this paradox of being seen to be doing very well when it comes to written work and reports and the things which we have done, to actually influencing the people themselves and seeing the difference in the way we behave, the way we move things. So that is my main concern. Is that we seem to have a gap, and a big gap, between what we say and the standards we set and the way we live.
Right. And of course, we want to question why the dissonance. That if we have these particular financial instruments, why aren't we seeing maybe a robust also, corporate governance, being espoused by most of the farms. Looking at what is on the front page of a Business Daily, this is just maybe highlighting what we're talking about. We can see where ARM right now is, ARM Cement, and Nigeria's Dangote is in a race to buy trouble ARM Cement. Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, says his company is targeting a cement maker with operations in Kenya, Tanzania and Rwanda, a description that fits the Nairobi-based firm currently under administration. And we know there were attempts even from Aliko Dangote previously to actually gain traction in Kenya, establish his firm, but he was frustrated because of a dead hand of bureaucracy and also issues of corruption, right, in the country. When we're talking about corporate governance, and we have ARM, which is a listed company, Geoffrey, why are we seeing the demise of ARM right now? Why are we seeing the demise of Nakumatt? Why are we seeing the demise of Uchumi as well? We have the corporate governance that has been running for all these years. Yes, we have the financial excellence awards, but when it comes to now the reality on the ground, Reverend Njenga says there is a dissonance. So why do we have all these different kettle of fish all together? Good reporting, but a bad posture that is really coming from this company. Well, we will talk about this also when we circle back with our panelists. And of course, remember also you can chime in, head over to our Twitter handle, AM Live NTV is our Twitter handle, AM Live NTV, our profile name on Facebook, and 20686 is our SMS portal. Firewords, mainstreaming, good corporate governance. Don't go away. Right. Welcome back. We're still holding court with our panelists here this morning, and we're discussing Financial Reporting Award, mainstreaming corporate governance. And before we took a short break, of course, we were discussing how corporate governance is pivotal, especially when it comes to financial reporting. Over the years, it's really gaining traction. And it is not about just the bottom line, it is about the triple bottom line today, the people, the planet, and the profit as well. And I'm holding court this morning with CPA Nebat Avutswa, who's the Chief Manager, Professional Services Division of ISPAC, Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya. Also, we do have with us Reverend Geoffrey Njenga, who's a corporate governance expert and professional accredited mediator as well. We do have with us Benson Okundi, who is a partner at the PricewaterhouseCoopers, and also is a director there. We have Geoffrey Odundo, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Nairobi Securities Exchange. And we continue pace with the conversation. Remember also you can join us on Twitter. AM Live NTV is a Twitter handle. AM Live NTV is a profile name on Facebook, and 205-2686 is our SMS portal. 20505 was the old one. But before we took a short break, we showed you what is a splash on the front page of a Business Daily. And this is just highlighting also what corporate governance is all about. If you may look at the front page of a Business Daily, the demise of ARM right now. Nigeria's Dangote is in a race now to buy troubled ARM Cement. Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, says his company is targeting a cement maker with operations in Kenya, Tanzania and Rwanda, a description that fits the Nairobi-based firm currently under administration. And I highlighted that earlier that also he was actually seeking to gain entrance in this market before, but he was frustrated because of a dead hand of bureaucracy and also corruption. But, Geoffrey, this has been on your radar, ARM. Did you see this coming? We've been talking about Nakumatt before. Everyone was shocked that a big company like Nakumatt is no more because of issues of malpractice, corporate governance issues, but on paper, on reporting, things were looking up.
Debarl, allow me to speak about listed companies. I wouldn't be able to comment on Nakumatt because it's not a listed company.
It is not a listed company.
So I think one of the things that, and one of the things why we encourage companies to get onto the NSE platform is the ability for investors to see, to have a clear picture about the company, right from your operational governance, financial position. So the ability for a lot of information being availed provides investors with a good opportunity to make a decision whether to acquire a business or not. And a case for ARM, as you rightly put it, we have not received any formal communication or any indication about the Dangote offer or if Dangote intends to take. But even that being the case, that probably positions us to say that it makes Nakumatt really an investable asset, because if an investor can see an opportunity, he has actually seen an opportunity to invest in a company like ARM, and he thinks it's viable, he thinks he can turn it around, then that means the company is in a stage of recovery and not in a stage of remedial or liquidation. Quite the opposite. If the company's information was not easily available and is put under liquidation, then you would really not know what happened. So I think the fact that companies are able to disclose more about their operations, it holds management to account more. You're able to understand the business model. The case of ARM, our analysis basically is it had a business strategy that probably didn't go right within the expected timelines, and that has impacted on all the operations. And that's really what preliminary information we see. We are really keen on getting ARM on a recovery phase, and I think the option of the administrators looking for a buyout is possibly a good indication of making the company remain sustainable. So I think I would not say that it's a worrisome case for the market. We have other companies that are disclosing information and running extremely well. We believe that the more companies embrace reportings of integrated reporting, sustainable reporting, these companies stand a very good chance of long-term survival. So we believe, and we are really encouraging companies to really embrace these practices.
Right. Let's see from Nebat on this, because now the issue of disclosure also has really come to the fore, and as I mentioned earlier, we saw splashes where we have figures of the CEOs now, which is a requirement by, I think, the Capital Markets Authority's Corporate Governance Code, that we know what the CEO is earning when you're doing this disclosure annually. But one of the things that we've noticed also is, or maybe you can clarify this for us, because they say that if a company is really going down the tubes, for instance, if ARM is really going down the tubes, and you have this disclosure that the CEO is taking this particular, tidy sum of money, then there has to be a salary cut. So the performance of a company is predicated and is contingent upon the good performance also of the company. That is, the CEO's salary is contingent upon the performance of a company. Is that the case? Clarify for me, make it limpid for this morning.
Thank you, Debarl. What I would say is that when we look at financial reporting, and when you look at this particular award, initially it was just to look at the numbers only. And given the case of ARM and many other entities, and you have all sorts of them, the financial reporting is a small component. The other issues, sustainability, governance, compliance, social, all these are together. Now, when you look at just the salary of the CEO, it's not just the salary. There are other things. We also look at the directors. What are the directors' involvements? And when you look at our new auditor reporting, when you look at ISO 700, 701, there are a lot of requirements. But even the Companies Act 2015, there's a lot of requirement in terms of disclosures of the remuneration of directors, and including the CEO. Now, this is just to help the companies to get to improve. When you look at the fire award, we assess all these particular components. And you know that the management of any entity, any company, it is the responsibility of the directors and management. Now, when the auditors come in to audit, they give you a true and fair view of your operations. And these particular reports are intended to help an organization, an entity, to improve. So when you come to the fire award, when these entities have given their financial statements, we assess them in all the sphere, and then we give you a confidential report. And this is just to help you improve in your particular performance. Now, we want all the reporting. We want the entities to report right. And of course, if there are any dangers, then we would, of course, tell them that you need to watch here, you need to watch here, you need to improve on these particular areas. But that improvement is not a responsibility of the auditors. It's actually the responsibility of the management. So it's a value addition, and it's for free. When you get to the fire award, you don't pay anything. But the information that we give you, it's value addition. As the Institute of Certified Public Accountants, we hold the public interest, and therefore we need to give the public that particular responsibility.
Right. All right, thank you. We just want to interrupt our discussion a bit. I think there will be interference a bit because we have to cross over now to State House, putting tails on what Cabinet Secretary, Amina Mohammed, she's doing this morning. She's at State House Girls. Let's just cross over and listen in a bit, then we'll come back to a discussion.
I've never cheated. So I don't even want to talk about that. Yeah? Yeah? So I tell you, if anybody wants to see what the future looks like, this is what it looks like. Yeah? It's beautiful, it's energetic, it's hardworking, it's passionate, it's determined, right, to change the world. You know, yesterday I lost my mother-in-law, right? And no, I think that, you know, she lived a wonderful life. So we need to celebrate her. But the one thing she totally believed in, completely, and she told us that every single day that I knew her, that was that this world will be changed by women. Right? Yes. She believed totally, completely in girls. And she carried out a lot of pilot projects to just prove her point. That in fact, if you educate a girl, she will change the world. Yeah? So those are the thoughts you must have. The country that you want to see, when you guys take over from us, yeah? Yes. And the fact that each and every one of you has a serious responsibility to change the world. Right? Yes. Yeah. You have to change this world and make it the most beautiful place, right, that we all want to live in. Okay? So I want to wish you well. I want to encourage you. I know you're going to make it. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind. You worked hard for 4 years. Now, you will see the achievement of all that hard work, right? Yes. Nothing in those papers comes from anywhere else except from your syllabus. Okay? So take your time and make all of us proud. Okay? Yes. So good luck again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A good clap, please, for all our guests. Madam CS, these girls have been asking me a question. They remembered last time you came, you sat with the Form 4 2017, you dined, and they're asking me, where is the CS? Here she is. Here she is. They are waiting for you.
Yes. Yes. You know, I really don't want to. If I knew that if I came and had a meal with you, I wouldn't interrupt your work, then I would come. But I really... but I want you to work hard, right? To really work hard. And so what I will do is, I think at the end of the exam, right? When we finish the exam, I'll come. Even if we can't have a meal together, we can have a discussion together, right?
Yes.
Yes. About the holidays and about everything else. Okay? And what we need to do to make sure that by the time we get to university, we are all still intact and everything is fine with us. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah, and that Form 4 is not the end of the world. It's the beginning of a wonderful world. Okay?
Yes.
Excellent. So I will come after you finish your exam so we can have a discussion and maybe a cup of tea. Okay?
Yes.
All right.
CS Amina there, of course, giving some pep talk, motivational speeches there to the State House girls, students who are sitting for the examination. Of course, this is a very pivotal gesture coming from the Cabinet Secretary in light of what is going on in the country right now, as we also encourage our students to continue working hard and, of course, sitting for the exams, which they're doing right now. This is the Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education. This is pictures coming live from State House this morning. Earlier on, also, we had her speaking from Timol in Langata, just also giving us giving us and keeping us apprised as far as the security of the examination is concerned, the cheatings, stunning warnings to them that are perpetrators of this heinous act as our students are sitting for exams. But we continue with our conversation pace here with our panelists, and I hope they've not lost their track of thought this morning. Yeah, we're still on corporate governance, even though, yeah, and you mentioned what we have on the dailies as well. Police hunt down chiefs of exam theft. All these encapsulate what we're really talking about this morning, corporate governance, not only just in the listed companies, but even from the public sector, which NEC is one of them. How are they managing corporate governance? If we have leakages and we have officials within government who are doing or who are actually exacerbating, aiding and abating this evils act of leaking exams, we have the Mwongozo Code, which espouses also good governance as well. From the public sector, is it being followed, right? I think we were done with, never you can, or you had finished, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but?
No, it's okay. It's okay.
All right, we can continue with Reverend Njenga. I think it was, no, actually it was Benson. Then we come to Reverend Njenga.
Yeah, you ask a very important question around the disclosure of the remuneration of the CEOs.
Yes.
And Nabat went ahead even to explain that it's not just the CEOs, but the directors as well. And I think your point of view was like, what is the link between the CEO's remuneration and the performance of the company? I picked that up. And I wanted to make a point that I think that is where the directors, board of directors role come in. Because board of directors basically appoint the CEO. The board of directors in corporate governance terms have responsibility to ensure that the company, be it in public sector or private sector, actually performs as expected, and they take the necessary measures that are required. So the board of directors must have a good understanding of the business, and when things are not working out well, put the management to task, and therefore take appropriate actions even on the CEO or on the MD for that matter. So appointment of the board of directors is extremely important. We need boards that have a good understanding of the business in different dimensions, the environment in which the business operates, the core business functions, financial management, auditing, and risk. But I think the bottom line to all this is actually setting the tone at the top. That is the leadership. And that cuts across not just private sector to public sector as well. And I must say that I'm happy with the firewood to the extent that we are seeing a number of public sector entities are now coming into the race. In the past, it was mainly the private sector entities, where the trading companies and listed companies and all that. But now we've seen county governments, some of them are already entering into the race. We are seeing ministries, departments, and agencies entering into the race. And that means that the understanding or the importance of financial reporting in the context of corporate governance is gaining currency, not just at the private sector, but also the public sector. But leadership at the top, wherever we are, be it in public sector, private sector, setting that appropriate tone is extremely important. We might be talking about financial reporting, but if you don't show good leadership at the top to ensure that all other ethical values are incorporated, we will not go far.
But the issue of the salary, that is where now I need to get clarity. Do you need to, if your company is not performing, it's really going down, does the code require of you also to have a salary cut? I think that was a bit of an ambiguity that we've never been given any clarification on this as far as the corporate governance code is concerned from the Capital Markets Authority. Any of you can actually tell us. Yeah, Dr. Njenga, it's your turn. It's actually your turn. We'll come to you.
My point was, if these awards are celebrating people who are succeeding in actual fact, they're spot on, because I think we must accept that there are people who are doing the right things. And people who are doing the right things must be celebrated. One of the problems I have with the media in this country, it is not news unless it's bad news. And I think there's a lot that is going on, which is right, that we can celebrate. And therefore, if the award is to celebrate those people who are doing well, fine. However, I think it is too small a drop in the ocean because the reality on the ground does not seem to suggest very strongly that our education, our certificates, our exposure is having a definite impact in the society today, not with all these headlines that you see. And the question is, are we really developing, growing a hollow nation? A nation without values. I don't really mind reading the statistics and reading the reports, but what do I get at the end of the day? Are we improving this country? Are we moving it forward? Do we see the corruption index going down? In all these companies which have done badly, some of them failed completely, We have accountants, qualified accountants. Where are they? What exactly do they do? We have people at the top leading. What exactly do they do? So I'm asking, are we developing a hollow nation, a nation that has no values, a nation that doesn't care about integrity? If the police would be called to guard exams so that they are not stolen and sold out, who is buying exams? And who are they being sold to? If I buy an exam for my son, what exactly am I telling him? What exactly do I want to see happen at the end of the day? And I can have as many good documents as I want on the file, wherever I might be, but what impact is it going to have? Now, my proposition, therefore, is we've got to sit back, celebrate those who are doing well, and ask ourselves hard questions. Where are we taking this country? Are we just looking at certificates? The fire award, I will take a certificate and put it in my office, and everybody else will. But what difference does it make in this country? And I said, those who are doing well, let's celebrate them. But I think we don't have enough of those.
We don't have enough of those. Yeah. Right. Let's get clarity and on the salaries. Contingent upon the performance of a company. Should I take a salary cut if my company is not performing well? Is that predicated in the corporate governance code?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think what I want to say is that in terms of the remuneration of the CEO and the directors, these are responsibility of management. And therefore, management would set salaries and remuneration of the CEO according to the performance of a company. As we look at the fire award and the financial reporting, we want to say that as accountants, and Njenga has said that, Reverend Njenga said that the accountants in all this. Now, when you look at the reports from the accountants, from the auditors, I think most of the time they're taken on the face value. The entities that you've talked about, when you look at the opinion of the auditor, and if you look at the management letter, and if you look at a report on NOCLA, non-compliance with laws and regulations, these reports goes to the governance. Now it is up to the entity's governance structure to use these particular reports to be able to structure the entity in determining the remuneration of the CEO and remuneration of the management. But most of the time, these reports are given by the auditors. These reports are given by the accountants. But sometimes they don't see the light of day. And that is the governance structure that we're talking about. Now, the fire award, we are just looking at the numbers only. Have the numbers been reported correctly? And we found that to be okay. But have they added value? And now we've added in the aspects of governance. We've added in the aspects of social responsibility and environmental, integrated reporting, so as just to make it more broad. I want to say that there has been a lot of improvement in terms of reporting. When we started the fire award 17 years ago, we just had about 20 entities. As we speak today, the year 2018, we have 503 entities. And a huge chunk of it, over 408 entities, are coming from the public sector, and about 95 from the private sector. So we get to see a lot of improvement in this. And the more we do this, the more we'll be able to help the public, the more the public will be able to be accountable to the public.
Right. Geoffrey Odundo.
Thanks, Debarl. I'd like, first of all, to applaud our listed companies who have embraced the ability of disclosing even the CEO and the director's remuneration. One, because it just expresses that high level of openness. I know there were great headlines about who's earning what, I mean the bonuses, etc.
Yes.
But that's, if you look at the performance of the businesses that those CEOs are running, they're actually performing. And I think it should cut both ways, that when the companies are performing, then there should be an equal measure of cutback or freeze on some of these benefits. We at the NSC embraced that in 2016, when there was a profit warning on the company. We took a freeze just to respond to the realities that you can't award yourself bonuses and salary increments when you've not performed well.
Yes.
So it should cut both ways, because today the appraisal of a CEO should be based on your financials. It should be based on your strategy, and it should be based on what the risk and the control mechanisms you've put in the firm, and how you've ensured that has continued. So we encourage that this should be a very, very important way of running the company. Investors should be able to assess those three parameters, and it all calls about setting the tone at the top. The other issue around governance, which I thought is important, I appreciate what the Reverend has talked about leadership. It's very, very important that the tone at the top is set right and it's cut across the whole organization, but more so also embracing diversity at the board level, encouraging diversity from the gender, from skill sets, and other aspects of diversity, so that you don't have what you call a common think a set of people who cannot question. We have been encouraging a lot of the role of the independent directors to come out strongly so that they can question some of these decisions being taken, because you're there without an interest. So we believe as long as those are the key things that we want to encourage and drive at board level and hold boards to account, so that companies do not have or are not skewed overly to a dominant management or to a dominant board, but there should be a fusion of both, just for the benefit of all stakeholders.
Right. Allow me to just piggyback on that particular aspect of disclosure of the CEO's salaries as well. And we know about the CEO's salaries, but we're not given the full spectrum of how the organization is doing as far as the distribution of salaries is concerned. Because sometimes we have a wide chasm between what the CEO is earning also from maybe the lowest cadre of an employee is taking home, which does not make any lick of sense at all. How do we justify him taking this solid cash or this steady sum of money, and maybe a janitorial pay for someone who's actually on the lower cadre, and the company is doing vibrantly? I mean, how does the whole court really captures this and try to maybe streamline it?
I think it calls about what's the company's remuneration policy. I mean, you must first of all benchmark it to the best standards, see what the top organizations are doing. I believe if you look at the level of responsibility determines your level of remuneration, and it has to be very equitably distributed, so that it doesn't create a high level of skewness on one side. I think very good organizations have been able to sort of narrow those gaps based on the levels of responsibility, right? Even at entry level, you find that at entry level it's not the basic minimum but a high amount. So it's really how you structure your remuneration policy. I'm really glad to see the analysts do carry out especially the media analysts, do carry out a very detailed assessment about those averages and the gaps, and I expect companies to respond to those queries now going forward. Yeah.
Right. Let's say from Benson, we'll come to you, Dr.
Yeah. I mean, the pre-serve of the remuneration obviously will be set up by the management, and the CEO, as I said earlier on, the board is responsible for that. So I think the board need to take very critical role in looking at the CEO's performance, again in tandem with the performance of the company. And I want to point out specifically the Audit and Risk Committee of the board, extremely important. What we have seen in the recent past is where the chair of that committee may not have the requisite experience and skills to be able to drive it. Not in all cases do we come across instances where the chair of the board and audit committee have the requisite skills. But there is increased awareness that we need to have people that have skills and understand the operations of the company and are able to put the management to task to be able to help the companies achieve their objectives. So having a good board, a board that understands the business in its entirety, a board that is independent from the management, a board that puts the management through the CEO to task, is likely to address most of these issues we are seeing in the corporate world. And not just in private sector, but also in public sector as well.
Right. Let's hear from Nebat. Nebat, on the issues of salaries.
Thank you. I think the issue of salaries, it's been well explained. And When you look at the issue of salaries, ideally it depends on the entity, it depends on the remuneration within that particular entity, and obviously there are certain salary scales.
So this is not in any way captured with the corporate governance code?
It's not captured in any standards. But when you're looking at the corporate governance, then we say that
why is it not?
What the firm is making should be able to sustain. I mean, the staff, the CEO and the team should be able to generate enough to pay the staff. Because basically when you're looking at the remuneration, you are rewarding for a service and you are rewarding for the responsibilities as per the work that is given to each and every employee in the entity. We do not have a specific standard saying that you must pay this much or this much. Every entity, they have got their own remuneration order. I think the lawyers have their remuneration order, and every other sector, they have their remuneration order. That's why we have the collective bargain agreements in every entity. If it's whatever industry, then there's that bargaining agreement.
All right, thank you. Reverend.
I think it is good and proper to reward labor at whatever level. And I think hard-working CEOs should be paid well. But my take is that we do have a blotted sense of importance at the top, and also what I think is terrible appetite for getting as much as we can at the top. And in the process, we forget that really the CEO cannot work alone, and the CEO and the board. There are people down there who do the work. And while I must accept the disparity, because we will remain a class society, is that appetite is dangerous. Look at even the public sector. And I know it is true also in the private sector. Parliament, for instance, there seems to be an insatiable desire to get more and create as many laws as possible that allows you to get as much as possible, forgetting the people out there. And the moment you preoccupy yourself with getting more at the top, you demoralize the people at the base. And I therefore think very little will be done. So I think this appetite for the guzzlers, this appetite for more money, I mean, we can only eat one meal or two or three in a day. And the CEO matches, they need to be rewarded. We need to be worried about that appetite for more and more. Now, let me go back to these fire awards, and I have a proposal to make. You see, this, I think, will capture the company and mainly the top. Why don't we look for a way to look for the people who work and reward them, the people down there who are doing very serious work, very good work to achieve the objectives of the organization. They generally go unrewarded, and this is general because I know there are companies which look for those kind of people, but we make it more and more to look for people who are actually performing. I think that will have an impact.
Right, thank you. And yes.
Let me just comment something.
Yes.
And I really appreciate Reverend's view around a rewarding top-down so that you don't forget the ground.
Yes.
One of the ways of doing that easily is by having employee share ownership schemes and options for employees to buy shares if you can set up a scheme. Now, look at the top companies in the world today, for instance, Microsoft. The largest pool of shareholders of Microsoft are the employees, and that gives them a direct alignment to the performance of the organization. So you're just not concerned about a paycheck, but it's about the performance of the company. And today they're much more wealthier than based on their salaries. So we're encouraging companies to set up these kind of schemes that gives rewards top down, and not just necessarily a salary pack, because that you can never know. There's never a limit of how much somebody wants to earn. But if you have a share ownership scheme when somebody knows if we perform up to this level, I get so many stocks into my portfolio. And that is one way that we can address the issue of narrowing that gap and allowing more equity.
Right. Yeah. You raise also the issue of board diversity and inclusivity. And there is one pivotal element that we do not see as far as board composition is concerned, and that is the youthful faces within these boards, right? And that has been also a very niggling worry that we have a board you know, constitution that does not appreciate the value of youthful faces and people because of the age factor. And you're looking at the age brackets for these particular board members, I think going down to the 70s as well. Why are we neglecting such a very pivotal you know, sector, the youthful faces, who have also bright ideas that can come and infuse the board discourse?
That's one of the pillars of corporate governance, diversity. And it's not because it's not written. It's not because we don't know. But we are not doing it. At least not to the extent I think we should.
Thank you. Let's hear from Ben as well.
You're right. I mean, diversity in terms of all aspects. I mean, representation from the various groups. Age, for example, is extremely important because the millennials think differently the way we do think. The youth that we have in this country is a real potential. It's an asset that has not been tapped. And we are talking about innovation. We need to be innovative that we can be able to align to what the requirements are of the various businesses, both in public sector and private sector. So it should be a good board that is constituted properly should have diversity in terms of age, in terms of skills, in terms of representation, so that when we discuss the issues at hand, and those issues will be relevant depending on the operations of the company or of the organization. For example, if it is a public sector entity in examination center, we should have diversity that brings in knowledge in that sector in particular, in education sector, in examination sector, and have the youth to give us the way they see things from their perspective so that we can then embed that in our strategy. But I think where we get it wrong is sometimes the appointing authorities, and specifically for public sector entities, we do not start with the end in mind. And the end in mind should be the ultimate benefit to the stakeholders that particular entity represents. We start by rewarding other things that are not important. Like, for example, we want to reward either loyalty or we want to reward people that might have not succeeded in their political careers, and therefore we find it easier to throw them into those boards. So if we start with the end in mind, and ask ourselves a fundamental question. Why does this entity exist in the first place? If it's a public sector entity, it exists to provide services to the citizens. We should be citizen-centric, and therefore now work backwards and ensure that we fill in those positions accordingly. I think we'll be able to see a big difference. Mwongozo Code was a good initiative, especially for the state corporations and the public sector entities. And we've seen a very good developments coming up around governance and board composition, but we are not there yet. I think we've got quite a long way to go to ensure that we fully implement the Mwongozo Code. So I think my recommendation would be, whether private sector or public sector, let's always start with the end in mind. And the end in mind will entail, what are we there for? What is the purpose? And then start filling it up backwards to ensure that we have the right people at the right places.
Right. Especially the board composition in the public sector, why will these seats remain to be, you know, political gifts for people who maybe did not make any political, you know, expediency during the elections, and then they were defeated, but you'll be appointed as chair. Is there a way we can try and address this? That yes, it has to be on merit, not because you're a political loser. Then you should be maybe mollified with a board position, and of course this remains to be the remit maybe of the executive to appoint this. How does also in the public sector, you mentioned the Mwongozo Code, how can this be addressed, that this should be on merit, not as a political gift?
Maybe let me just go, I could probably comment on one thing. We also, that's why we're encouraging state-owned enterprises to be listed on the exchange, because then you're compelled to have a particular board structure. And hence, even that means you're not only looking at, even if you're bringing somebody you think as a political lineage, it has to be, they have to have the right skill to be appointed to that position. And it's just not picking anybody. And that's how one way that we can actually fast track the proper structure of these organizations. Over and above that, I do agree that, and as Okundi said, the issue around embracing a diversity on the board. We encourage this. We run this. We run a program under the sustainability programs of the NSC to encourage board diversity, and we look at all those aspects. And the public sector, being a key stakeholder now of these FIRE awards, are actually also embracing some of these thoughts that because it's a score that we also carry out during the evaluation process. So we believe this will be a start of a journey, and I think going along, it should be embraced going forward.
Right. We can actually also discuss a bit of the boys' club syndrome. Women on board are not equally represented, and this has been, because, we want to keep the club being a boys' club. I don't know what you have to say in that line, Debarl.
Thank you, Debarl. When we look at the board of directors, the board of entities, and this is well captured in FIRE award, the section on governance and on board. These are some of the things that we look at. If you look at the results of 2017, we had a lot of many entities just having the men in terms of the board. When we gave our feedback to the entities, we've seen a little improvement. And as we give this feedback, we advise. And of course, looking at the Constitution, the 2/3 rule, we encourage we encourage entities just to be able to comply with the gender in terms of board composition. So going forward and going by the number of entities that we are attracting the FIRE award, we are getting to see some improvement on this. And very soon then we should be able to get to that gender balance.
All right. Reverend Njenga, you wanted to weigh in a bit on that?
Yes. I think the accent in most of the discourse in these things is we should. We should. I think we need to move away from we should to must be done. And somebody has to do what needs to be done. I have no doubt in my mind that most of our problems are not because we don't know. I think we have lots of information in this country. We have very well trained people in this country. But I think as a people, we have to accept that the Traffic Act is there to guide us, and we will respect it. The powers that have been given to us as leaders are given to help us, and therefore we take action. So what I'm looking for really is not a lot of book knowledge, it's not a lot of certificate, it's not a lot of all these good things. I'm looking for one person who will say, I'll make a difference, and then I have 2, and then I have 3, and then I have 4. That, I believe, is where we ought to be. We ought to move away from should. For the longest time, I have read all manner of documents, especially on corporate governance, that are very well detailed and well written and put in place. Even our Constitution, I think largely is a good document. But are we willing really to do it? Because once we agree that we will do it, we will make a difference. And it doesn't have to be necessarily begin with everybody, the 45 million that we are. But we begin to create a critical mass. And I really think these awards are important because they are bringing people who are of the same mind together. But we must go beyond the awards. We must go beyond the certificates. We must go beyond we should to where we are actually doing it.
Thank you. Thank you. Lastly, as we're also giving our closing remarks, Safaricom, I think they're really fast out of the gate to come out with their sustainability report. And this is all in the spirit of integrated reporting as well. Should we pick up also the tab on this? And why aren't we having other firms coming up with a sustainability report aside from the annual, firms reports?
So I think this is a good development. In fact, we now have 5 firms that are issuing sustainability reports. Some are doing the 2nd or 3rd sustainability reports because it actually has a direct correlation with the performance of the business as well. Now, it's something that we're encouraging. In the last financial year, I think well over 10 companies have done integrated reports. which basically is a good precursor to doing a sustainability report.
Okay.
So investors are really pushing for this, they're demanding for this, especially institutional investors. So companies listed on exchange, most of them have commenced this process. And we should be seeing more and more coming through.
Thank you.
It also just explains the ability of a company being very open, running a very open and transparent business.
Right. Lastly, Nebert, just give us also the dates of these Fire Awards. Last year we had Samia picking up, you know, the trophy. What are some of the metrics you're using briefly to give, you know, that award to Samia? Very briefly.
Thank you very much. I think, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, indeed, Samia got the award last year. And we look at all the aspects of the award. What we do is we do a technical evaluation. It goes through a three-stage evaluation. We have the first evaluation, the first level, the Fire Award, where the reviewer would look at the governance, would look at the compliance with the reporting standards, the auditing standards, the social aspect, the environmental, and give the award. Normally we start with 200 marks, and we go by subtraction if you have not met the requirement in that particular field. Then after that, it goes to the second level, who is an independent person. Again, they look at that and they evaluate independently. And then it goes to the third level, where we have the chief judge. We are still maintaining the same chief judge, FCPA Dr. Jim McPhee, who is our chief judge, and Joe Gishuhi. They would then now pick from the very refined entities and be able to pick the very first award. So the marks are given, and there's always a scientific way of doing it. We have a scientific tool of doing this particular award. And once the marks have been given, then you are given the award. This year's Fire Award will be held on the 15th day of November 2018 at Safari Park during the conference. And then during the gala dinner, we'll have it at Carnival Restaurant from 6 p.m. We are honored to have the chair of the Council of Governors, Honorable Nanok, to be our guest speaker during the conference. And we are also honored to have CPA Obadia Biraro from Rwanda, who will be our guest during the dinner. As you appreciate that this is an East Africa Fire Award, and therefore we have the representation from the Eastern Africa region.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nebert. Finally, also let's hear from Benson, your closing remarks. Briefly, how are we doing on that front of corporate governance?
Yeah, I think financial reporting excellence is just one aspect of the corporate governance. It's a step in the right direction, but corporate governance is quite wide. I think it begins by asking ourselves a fundamental question that are we really being stakeholders? Are we really adding value to stakeholders? Are we protecting stakeholders' interest and assets to that extent? And the responsibility is on each and every one of us. I think the leadership should set the tone at the top, but individually where we find ourselves in private sector, public sector, we need to take responsibility for that enhanced value to stakeholders who rely on us.
Thank you very much. Finally, Reverend Geoffrey Njenga.
I want to say this. We have a good country and we have a good base. If I can put it this way, we have the hardware in place, whether you're talking about infrastructure, whether we are talking about the training of personnel and setting up of companies, we have the hardware in place. I think what Kenyans need to work on, and quickly for that matter, is a software, which begins with a person. What kind of a person do I want to be? What kind of a leader do I want to be in this country? And if we are able to unravel that one and solve the problem with the software, nobody can do better than us.
Thank you very much. I want to appreciate you all this morning. Reverend Geoffrey Njenga, who is a corporate governance expert and a professional accredited mediator. Thank you for coming through. Also, CPA Nebert Havutswa, Chief Manager, Professional Services Division, Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya. Thank you for coming through this morning. Also, CEO of Nairobi Security Exchange. This is Geoffrey Odundo. Thank you for coming through this morning. We really appreciate. Also, Benson Okundi, who is a partner at the PricewaterhouseCoopers and also director there. Thank you for coming through this morning and that cogent discussion we just had, mainstreaming corporate governance in Kenya. Lastly, as we're winding up, we have Governor the Dreamer saying we have powerful potential in our youth and we must have the courage to change old ideas and practices so that we may direct the power toward good ends. Also, we have Jacob Abere Mtulala saying corporate governance today have a lot of gaps in private and public services. Today have no clear salary cuts. Financial reports are vague. Pull back to community social responsibilities. High corruption index in management. And also Samuel Orutua is saying the constitution may make it possible for prime suspect of murder, mega corruption scandals and other high-profile cases for dignitaries to resume their high-profile offices, but it is demanding to the families of the victims and entire public. And also Sunday Enoch is saying, I'm watching live from Mavoko, Machakos County. Thank you. We appreciate you, Sunday. Thank you for your valid campaign as well. Let's try and make sure we mainstream corporate governance in all our endeavors with our companies. My name is Debarl Inea. Living with This is up next.